Let's take a look at our first comparison. So just like we did with power, let's look at a question first. So compare the ways the poets explored the realities of war in the Charge of the Light Brigade and Bayonet Charge. Now, Bayonet Charge has been used a couple of times over the years in these exams, but Charge of the Light Brigade has not. So it could be a potential question. I think Bayonet Charge is a nice comparative point. Like, like it's easy to understand. There's some good methods in there. So let's make sure that although it may not be the one that's printed, though it may not be the named poem, it could be a good comparison point if you get a question on war or get a question on conflict. So obviously we've got soldiers' perspective in both of these. So first up, we need to have a think about those connecting statements that we're going to make. So what is the comparative element? What's the connection between the Charge of the Light Brigade and between Bayonet Charge? What are both poets showing? What are both poems exploring? What are they discussing? What are they highlighting about war? What are they exposing about war? We need to try and convey this first. So first up, we could say something like, both the Charge of the Light Brigade and Bayonet Charge explore the dangers of war. Very broad, but I know I can argue it. Charge of the Light Brigade, the Light Brigade that charged into battle into inevitable death. Remember that there was that miscommunication. They received an order that was wrong and they rode into that valley of death and they were destined to die. Bayonet Charge, the dangers of war, going over the top, running into battle with his bayonet. Of course, we can argue that point. Number two, we could talk about how, as well as presenting the dangers of war, both poets also explore the soldier's sense of duty. When I think of Charge of the Light Brigade, I think of duty and honor. Like it was their duty to fight. They were following orders, they were following their commander. And although that commander blundered, although he made a mistake, they still followed through with their duty. And the same with Bayonet Charge. He's woken up in the middle of the night and he has to start running because he's following orders, he's following his duty. And then I'd link it back to the question at the end. So both poems explore the reality of war. But while Tennyson presents war as honorable and heroic, he's celebrating those soldiers in charge of the Light Brigade. What is Hughes doing? Well, Hughes questions this. He questions whether war is heroic. He questions whether war is honorable, and instead he exposes it as chaotic, meaningless, futile, pointless, however you want to discuss it. So these three steps will become my introduction first. So let's read that in its entirety and imagine that this is your thesis statement. So both the Charge of the Light Brigade and Bayonet Charge explore the dangers of war. As well as presenting the dangers of war, both poets also explore the soldier's sense of duty. Finally, both poems explore the reality of war, but while Tennyson presents war as honourable and heroic, Hughes questions this and exposes it as chaotic and meaningless. We have our thesis. We have our introduction. Then we are going to break down each one of these points in the rest of our essay. And we're going to bring the two poems together each time. Okay, so we'll start with the Charge of the Light Brigade and then over we go to Bayonet Charge. Now, there will definitely be things that are already popping up in your head that you think, oh, I would use that from Charge of the Light Brigade, or I would use that from Bayonet Charge. That's fine. Make sure you're jotting that down. These are just some options you could use. So Charge of the Light Brigade, you could talk about the cannons. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them. So we've got that repetition instantly exploring the dangers of war. We've got that repetition showing that those soldiers are surrounded by warfare, they're surrounded by weapons, and there is no escape. They are in this kind of inescapable, relentless danger. They're riding into the valley of death. They are riding into conflict. They are riding into danger, and there's no escape for them. On the opposite side with Bayonet Charge, we might talk about the personification of bullets smacking the belly out of the air. showing the danger that even nature is being attacked, even the environment is under attack. Nothing is safe. The soldiers are not safe, the environment's not safe, nature's not safe. War destroys everything. So we see that brutality of war. We see how, there is no peace here. There is no salvation here. Everything and everyone is being attacked on this battlefield. It is the symbol of danger, what this soldier is about to do, to run across into like no man's land with his bayonet in hand, and that's his only protection. But number two, talking about how both poets also explore the sense of duty. With Charge the Light Brigade, could we talk about how even though it was a miscommunication. Even though their commander was wrong, these soldiers still rode into the valley of death. They still followed orders. They still did their duty. Even though they knew that they would die, they still, fought for their country. And Valley of Death, that metaphor, of course, you can talk about it as a metaphor like the valley, but it's also biblical. We see that in the Bible where we hear about like into the valley of death, almost like into hell. They are riding into the jaws of hell or the mouth of hell. So it's suggesting sacrifice here. It's like they're martyrs to the cause. Like they are just numbers. We could talk about power here as well. Like this idea that these soldiers are just numbers on a battlefield. They just need to follow orders without question and just do their duty. Its duty here is presented as, this noble, moral characteristic. Like these soldiers must do this for their country. And it's a collective idea. They are all working together to fight this enemy, even though they know that their death is inevitable. With Bayonet Charge, we could talk about his terror's touchy dynamite right at the end. His sense of duty is replaced by what? His sense of duty is replaced by fear. He signed up for the war. This soldier signed up for the war out of patriotism. This soldier signed up to the war, to fight because he wanted to fight for his king and his country. This soldier is like there on the battlefield, ready to fight, ready to, show his honor and prove that he is, presenting his duty to his country. However, right at the end of this poem, you've got his terror's touchy dynamite. And I would focus on that ticking sound, those T sounds, like almost like it's a ticking time bomb. Like his fear is taking over. His survival instinct kicks in. That is far more powerful than his sense of duty. It's far more powerful than fighting for your country, fighting for patriotism. All he cares about at that point is survival. And he's terrified. So it kind of links back into the dangers of war as well. And then this last one, where we've got Charge of the Light Brigade showing that war is honourable and heroic, and Bayonet Charge showing it's chaotic and meaningless. Yes, they're both showing the reality of war, but they're showing it in different ways. So for Charge of the Light Brigade, could we focus on the end, the repetition of, honor the charge they made, honor the Light Brigade. He wants us to honor these men who died on this battlefield, honor these men who died with a sense of duty. That he wants them to be remembered, for them to be admired. And he's commanding us in that imperative language. He's not asking us, he's telling us, honor them. That's the reality. They fought bravely, they were given the wrong order, the wrong command, and they died in that valley. They died in that valley of death. And it wasn't up to them. They were following orders and they should be admired, they should be remembered. You could also talk about the rhythm that he uses. Now, Tennyson uses something called dactylic dimeter. Now, if you don't remember that, that's absolutely fine. You can talk about the galloping rhythm. Think of the opening of the poem, half a league, half a league, half a league onwards. It's like galloping horses. Now, this rhythm is usually used in like epic, heroic narratives, historically used. So when writers used to sit down and write about heroes, they would use dactylic dimeter. Now, why does he use that? Well, he wants them to be celebrated as heroes. He wants them to be celebrated like the greatest heroes in history. So talk about that idea of course, the rhythm can show that it's like they're moving into the danger. They are, they've been controlled, they've been given an order, and then they're galloping towards their death. Of course, you can talk about that. But more so, I would talk about the fact that he uses the same meter or the same rhythm as historic, heroic narrative writing. So he's trying to place these soldiers against famous heroes of history. In Bayonet Charge, the fact that we still get that idea of honor. We still get the idea of why the soldier signed up to fight for his country in the first place. He lists all of the traditional values, like I'm fighting for my king, I'm fighting for honor, I'm fighting for human dignity, I'm fighting to become a hero. However, in this list, you've got the word etc. Like all of these things really, really mattered at the start, really, really mattered when I signed up to fight, but it doesn't matter anymore. The meaning falls away, Habib. Yeah, exactly. Etc. It's like it undermines everything. It undermines the importance of king, honor, human dignity. It's like it doesn't matter anymore. I'm fighting for my life. It doesn't matter anymore because he is terrified. It doesn't matter anymore because he is fearful. Everything that he signed up for in the first place is futile, is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. He's been controlled. He signed up because he feels he has that duty to his country. However, duty doesn't matter when you're fighting for your life.